Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen, and this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glares. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
And welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio. Wow, I was expecting, and I'm Don Neuen, to be, interrupting me as I try to intro the show, but you're uncharacteristically silent.
Well, I wasn't ready. I didn't get a chance to warm up my pipes tonight.
You warm up?
I do warm up.
What do you do when you warm up?
I do vocal acrobatics and stretching exercises.
Is that what I hear you doing when I'm upstairs in the basement?
Yeah.
It is.
Let me tell you something. I take this very seriously. This is a trademarked thing that started off very small as a joke and has gained momentum like you wouldn't believe.
Well, let me hear what you do, because I'm usually upstairs. So, I do hear it through the floor. I can hear this noise. But
Was it like a muffled noise?
I wasn't aware of what you do.
Well, I do various exercises.
Okay. Let's hear it.
What do you want to hear?
I want to hear what you do when you warm up your vocal cords before we start the show.
Hey, the lady, these our valued listeners don't want to listen to this.
I had friends in college radio, and I'm going for my college radio reunion, I think, in another month and a half or so, but I don't, up at Seton Hall. So you sit there and go,
well, that's kind of what I do.
And then open and close his mouth. God, is that obnoxious?
See, that by doing that, it loosens up the jaw muscles.
I never did that. I've been in radio now.
Well, you don't have a signature thing going on like
almost
I do.
40 years.
Yeah, you went for 40 years and you didn't have a signature.
That's true.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to welcome you all to the Big Cowboy Logic radio episode tonight. My name is Don Neuen.
You sound like you're at Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus or something, like you're the whatever they call the guy.
You're making fun of me.
I am making fun of you.
Why do you do that?
The circus ringleader or whatever the heck he is. Why am I drawing a blank on what they are? What do they call them?
Because you're blonde.
That's true.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, on a serious note here.
More blonde than I was last week, actually.
Well, and it looks very beautiful, Donna Fiducia. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind each and every one of you, I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen, and boy, have we got a riveting show for you all tonight. This show and all others is brought to you by no sponsors.
That's true.
And you know why we do that?
So we have more time for information.
Well, that, and also we don't have anybody telling us what to do.
That's true.
And what to say, and how to behave, and how to act, and what to say, and what to do.
This is true.
Although we do need to recognize some very special people.
Yes, we do.
Our digital flagship station, Talk America Radio, found at talkamericaradio.us, and the man at the helm, Ron Phillips. He's a good egg. Wouldn't you say that?
Yes, he is a very good egg.
Yeah, and he and those numbnuts from the conservative cartel, they came back from CPAC.
They must have had
They were
fun.
quite the stars up there, Donna.
Sounded like they had fun.
They did have fun.
Yes, they did.
You know what? And they moved in on one of our guests. And I don't appreciate that all Chris X and Matt Locke, Ron Phillips.
They moved in on a bunch of our guests.
Did you notice how I turned from being very amorous toward them and appreciative to now I don't like them at all?
Well,
because they moved in, they horned in on our little man.
Which one?
Our Mr. Man.
Yes, that's true.
Kenny KAKATY.
You know why?
Because we suggested they do that.
Exactly.
Aren't we the fools?
And
No, we're all one big family at talkamericaradio.us, found at talkamericaradio.us.
Right.
Now, there are some other very important people that we have to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be our terrestrial affiliates. Without them, ladies and gentlemen, we would not be on AM/FM radio, and I wouldn't be able to talk like this. That was very radio-esque, FM-esque, wouldn't you say?
And your voice does sound good. You must have warmed up appropriately.
I warmed up appropriately.
Yes, very good.
WDDQ Talk 92.1 FM, serving South Georgia. WJHC 107.5 FM, serving North Florida. And WLBB News Talk 1330 AM and 106.3 FM, serving where we live. West Georgia and East Alabama.
Yes.
Although we don't live in Alabama, we live in Georgia. We are not Crimson Tide fans. We are Bulldog fans.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we're within
Even
2
though
hours.
I went to the University of Tennessee, and Donna, right this very moment, is wearing an orange Tennessee sweatshirt.
Because I was cold and I grabbed your sweatshirt.
So all of you that are from divided homes out here in West Georgia can't figure out whether you want to root for the Alabama Crimson Tide or the University of Georgia Bulldogs. We've got an easy answer for you. Vote for,
Tennessee.
Yeah, support Tennessee.
Well, I went to Seton Hall.
Because they won no games this year.
But I went to Seton Hall, and they don't even have a team. So
yeah, don't they have a croquet team or something? What do they play? What are they big at?
They're good with basketball. They're good in basketball. And they
cares
used to be good
about
in baseball.
basketball?
Baseball, too. And
Baseball.
A lot of guys
now,
went
you
on
know
to
my
the
past
Yankees
in
and the Hall of
baseball.
Fame.
I'm a huge baseball guy.
Yes, this is true.
But having said that, Seton Hall, from what I understand, Donna, in 2017, the reigning champions of backyard croquet.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
That and that other sport that has the brooms where they fling the ball.
Or lacrosse.
Yeah, lacrosse. What a manly sport that is. All right, now that we've alienated all of our friends in the Northeast because all they play is lacrosse.
Well, it is big up there.
That's because they haven't figured out how to play football yet. North of Philadelphia and south of Boston.
Yeah, I guess, unfortunately.
Well, you've got the Giants and the Jets.
Seton Hall had a football team when I was there, and nobody went.
I heard they couldn't find the flags, so they couldn't play one day.
It died from lack of interest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, you've listened to about, 10 minutes of this stuff. Let me remind you that I'm Don NEUEN.
Yes, we know that.
And who are you?
I'm Donna Fiducia.
And together, we're Cowboy Logic Radio.
Yes, we are. And boy, do I love Georgia.
Why do you love Georgia,
I just
Donna?
love the state of Georgia.
Tell me why, Donna.
The Georgia Senate has blocked tax breaks for Delta after it severed its ties with the NRA. Damn, you gotta love that.
Gotta love it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle said he would not support legislation that helped the airline unless it reverses its decision and fully reinstates its relationship with the NRA.
Well, wait a minute. Casey Cagle?
That's, yeah. Well,
he's not the governor.
Lieutenant Governor, I said.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now Governor Nathan Deal.
What did he have to say about it?
Other supporters of this $50 million jet fuel sales tax exemption is what they were going for. They want they want to take it out of this broader tax bill that already passed in the State House. So we'll see what happens with that. But come on. This is so stupid now. You're going to blame the NRA and you're going to blame rifles for a total, utter failure, again, of local police and, quite frankly, the FBI.
Well, here's the thing. We all have our opinions about the failures of the sheriff's department down there in Broward County. And
you know that jerk?
It was tragic.
This guy, Israel, has his face planted on the side of patrol cars in Broward County. This guy is a total political hack. Even CNN, when they interviewed him, finally said, something, actually acted like journalists for a change.
No. Say it isn't true, Donna.
Asked a few questions of him like, don't you think maybe somebody should have gone in? Don't you think maybe after dozens of calls, like 50, was it 39 or 50 calls, something like that, and it keeps going up. But there were dozens of calls to this house by numerous people saying this guy said he wants to be a famous school shooter. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he made it clear.
This is insanity.
I'm going to tell you something, Donna. Last Thursday, as you know, but the listeners do not, Steve Graddick from WLBB 1330 AM and 106.3 FM, along with all the Graddick communications stations out here in West Georgia and East Alabama, he and I had a meeting with our local sheriff, Sheriff Terry Langley. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Carroll County, Georgia has a darn good sheriff that I am honored to have serve us in the capacity of the sheriff of Carroll County. I met some people that are in his office. We had a discussion about some things that, quite frankly, we're just not going to share right now over the air. But I can tell you this, Sheriff Langley is all about protecting the 27 campuses that are located in Carroll County. And this guy means business. And I feel a heck of a lot safer living in Carroll County when we've got Sheriff Langley at the helm. Thank you to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office.
Amen. Now, I know hindsight also is 20/20, but scanner recordings reveal the Broward County Sheriff's Department told EMS workers not to go inside, even though they wanted to. And apparently, a lot of people are finally saying the sheriff should be fired. Pam Bondi says she knows, this is the Attorney General of Florida, she knows more than we do, and, quote, the right thing will be done. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But this Sheriff Israel in Broward County is on, with Dana Lash last week, lambasting her because she's, of course, the NRA spokesperson. He's going, 18-year-old kids should never have a rifle. And he's grandstanding with her. And, of course, all the people in the background are screaming at her. And you know what? Here's what I can say about this whole thing. I'm old enough to remember the voting age being lowered to 18 because 18-year-olds were drafted. They learned how to shoot guns. They went through basic training. They went to Vietnam. All right? If you can get drafted and you can handle a gun, you can vote. Okay? Fair enough. So now, with this nanny state, let's raise the voting age to 21 if you can't have a gun until you're 21. And let's see what happens with that. You know the Democrats will squeal like pigs on that one.
Look, listen, I respect your opinion on this. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I understand the point you're trying to make. But here's the bottom line. I've been saying this for probably 3 weeks now. Mm-hmm. There is no law that can be passed. There is no legislation that can be drafted that can protect innocent citizens from evil or war. There is nothing that can be done from a legislative standpoint. If you want to protect innocent people from evil or war, you harden the facilities, you harden the state, you harden the country. That's how you protect it, because evil people and warmongers go after soft targets. They always have, and they always will.
It's like putting a sign up in front of the building saying, okay, we're all unarmed. You got a gun,
some of them do that. Some of these restaurants, what is it? If I get this wrong, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. Is it Buffalo Wings, Wild Wings?
Yep. Don't bring a gun in.
Talking about a soft target, ladies and gentlemen. I won't go there and eat. Mm-hmm. Donna won't go there and eat. Now, here's the other thing. The left always jumps on trying to ban weapons. And they misuse terms. We're going to forgive them for being mental midgets when they do that. But they want to ban weapons. They want to ban guns. Here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line with it all. As a convicted felon, you could go into any urban environment, Atlanta, St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, any of the other big urban settings, as a convicted felon, and you could purchase a weapon of your choice, probably, for less money and less time than it takes me, who's never had nothing on his record, who is a NRA member and has a weapons permit, a concealed carry permit, for me to go into a law-abiding legal store and purchase a firearm or a long gun. It would take you less time as a convicted felon to go into the hood and buy something, and you'd spend less money than I would. So by banning guns, it's not going to solve the problem. Ever. End of story. I've said it too many times. Back to you,
you know as well
my
as
dear.
I do, and I'm sure our listeners know this as well. It's not about the Second Amendment. It's about the Constitution. And that Second Amendment, you can't have the first one without the second. Okay? They hate the Constitution. That's really the bottom line. But let me just give you some background information from National Review. Planned Parenthood spends almost 10 times more money buying political influence than the NRA. It's almost predictable after every shooting, it's the NRA's fault, as we've been talking about. But again, 10 times more spent by Planned Parenthood during the 2016 election than the NRA. That's about maybe 3.5 million, as opposed to 38 million.
Yeah, but that's coming from mental midgets on the left that don't know the difference between an AR-15 gun and an AR department at a clothing store.
But that's not my point. My point is there's nothing against Planned Parenthood, which does 300,000 abortions a year.
Correct.
Okay? That's a heck of a lot more.
You're right.
You know, deaths. I'm sorry, innocent deaths. And Planned Parenthood also receives $500 million tax dollars a year. Mm-hmm. All right? And remember when Barack Obama put that committee in there to the Consumer Finance Review Board? Mm-hmm. That was really a slush fund because a lot of that money was taxpayer money that actually went back in toward very Democrat donors like Planned Parenthood. But
you are correct,
they have not
Donna
even
Fiducia,
looked into that at all.
And I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to remind you of that.
So CPAC ended. And it was wonderful to watch Donald Trump for his hour and a half. But we are going to be speaking to our roving young Generation Z, does he call himself? Kenny KAKATY.
I don't know. I call him a Mr. Man.
He is, because Kenny KAKATY is 14 years old. We met him when he was 12 at CPAC a couple years ago. And he got to play the national anthem for the last 3 years at CPAC. So we're going to play actually a recording of his in just a minute of his playing the guitar for the national anthem. But he says that CPAC is like better than going to Disneyland for him.
Yep. We've had this young man on our show. We met him in 2016. We'll get into more of introducing him because he's going to be coming in. When's he coming in? Top of the hour, right?
Yeah, the top of the hour.
He's out on a hot date right now, and he's got to finish up with all of that, and then he's going to join us at the top of the hour. But Kenny created a video that he put on Facebook, and it went viral. Mm-hmm. And he was basically what he was talking about was his disdain for the Grammy Awards and how disrespectful they were and how unpatriotic they were and how disgraceful they were. And so Kenny felt moved because he's like the ultimate patriot to create a video that ended up going viral. And this is what he did.
Hi, my name is Kenny KAKATY. Last night, as I was watching the Grammys, I kept getting the feeling that something was missing. After giving it some thought, I came to the conclusion that the key element missing from the Grammys last night and from our country today as a whole was patriotism. Patriotism and respect. Respect for our nation, our flag, and our president. You don't have to agree with someone or something to show them respect. As far as patriotism goes, I'd have been much more impressed with the Grammys last night if they had started with something more like this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, KAKATY, that young man is 14 years old. I want to remind you of that. And he is a true patriot. Can you imagine when you were 14 years old being disgusted at the Grammy Awards because of a lack of respect and a lack of patriotism? And this young man also, as Donna said earlier, attended CPAC and performed the national anthem on his guitar in front of the big room at CPAC.
You can see why. The kid can play, and he did it when he was 12. This is
that's
his
when we met him.
third time doing it.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing. So we're going to be talking to Kenny at the top of the hour. Before that, though, we're going to be talking with Judge Hal MOROZ, who is just our legal eagle. And it's been a while since we've had him on, but
he's just the coolest guy.
He is. He really is. He's totally cool. And, of course, to end the show, we're going to be talking to John Guandolo, Understanding the Threat. And that is talking about radical Islam, or basically it's Islam. I hate to say it. Before we go to the break, though, and then come back with Judge Hal MOROZ, I just want to say one thing, though, that's very chilling. We didn't get to it yet. And that is what is going on in China. China. I know everybody kind of jokes about that. But when you've got Xi Jinping now kind of posturing to have permanent presidency, or whatever you want to call it, we're talking about somebody who could be in power for life. This is a huge power grab, the biggest since Mao Zedong. And Gordon Chang was on Fox Business talking about it and the Fox News Channel this week. This is more state control. Closing global commerce waterways is something he's doing. He said it's an extremely dangerous direction, similar to what Germany was doing before World War I. Totally chilling. We got to get Gordon Chang back on, too, as well. But keep an eye on what's going on in China, because this could really be a huge problem. As we're all focusing on Russia, sorry, China is really the big gorilla in the room right now. Anyhow, so we'll be back with Judge Hal MOROZ after the break, and KAKATY at the top of the hour, the Boy Wonder, and John Guandolo. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you this 24/7 stream of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. We are a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. If you're able, please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. Your donation will go a long way in helping us continue to share the American voice. Thank you.
Let me talk to you, black people. When you vote for blacks and put them in office under the banner of the Democrat Party, please explain to me what black people get as a result. This was not a nap that we have been taking. We are in a coma. You know what the interesting thing about pensions is? That's today's money given to people who ain't doing nothing for you today. Get off that black Democrat tit that they've been sucking on. Your country is being stolen from you, and the promise is being stolen from your children, and they're telling you it's all right while the rest of the world is trying to lap us. Well, why are we doing so poorly? 2 words: teachers' unions. Are you kidding me?
Black Man Thinking, Monday nights, 9 p.m.
You cannot retreat to your safe spaces. There are no therapy poodles allowed, especially when facing the truth. And that's just how we like it. Straight, hard, conservatarian talk on the rocks. No chaser. Served up on the Adrian Slade Show. Small, limited government, constitutional conversations. Exclusively on Talk America Radio. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. on Talk America Radio Liberty.
This is Denise Simon. 18 hours a day, I live in a world as an intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. What I find is reprehensible. What I find is terrifying. What I find is treasonous. 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 The mainstream media has completely failed the American people. 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 Join me for the Denise Simon Experience every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey, everybody, they're back on again.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glares. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen, who's trying very hard not to blurt out his name right now, because our next guest is our legal eagle, the guy we turn to for all of the latest as far as what's going on legally in the United States. And boy, with all these, I guess, congressional investigations and Robert Mueller and everything else, there's plenty to talk about. But let me first introduce Judge Hal MOROZ. He is a retired Georgia judge, a distinguished Army career in the airborne, where he said he jumped out of perfectly good airplanes. And you were a member of the Supreme Court Bar Association, right? Is that whatever that is? What exactly is that, Judge Hal MOROZ?
Donna, great talking to you and Don. Being a member of the Supreme Court Bar means I have practiced before the United States Supreme Court and argued cases before them.
Ooh,
so,
excuse me.
My legal history runs a few decades, but I still look like I'm 21, I'm sure.
There you go.
All right, well, I've got a question. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Donna.
Books.
I'm pulling rank here.
All right.
Judge, given the fact that you have argued before the Supreme Court, I have one simple question. Does Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg actually look as old as she does on television?
Wow, Don, you know I'm a gentleman, my friend. Ruth Ginsburg has the telltale signs of someone who's been a jurist for many, many decades.
Corruption. That would be corruption. I'm sorry. Ideological stupidity.
All right, I got to put my game face back on here because I've been fooling around now, and I said I wasn't going to do that. Back to you, Donna.
Well, let me get into your many books, because Judge Hal MOROZ, you have written so many books that are nice, easy reads, but very informative. It's Morning in America Again. Or It's Morning Again in America, I should say. Breaking Trust with the Constitution, America at Sunset, Armor of the Republic. And again, you can find them at Amazon, Books A Million, all the major bookstores. Just a bunch of great short books that I think you should really get hold of, folks, because the information is all there. But let me turn your attention, though, to Armor of the Republic, page 88. And the footnote there that I have highlighted because it sits on my desk all the time. And that would be I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the ongoing works of friends like Donna Fiducia and Don NEUEN and Audrey Russo, who, like Paul Revere, sound the alarm against the forces of political correctness that are destroying our republic. And I do thank you for that, Judge Hal MOROZ, because it put me in a book. Us in a book, I should say.
You know what's funny, Don, I got to tell you this. Like President Trump, I'm going to say, I really liked hearing that. Whoever wrote that did a really good job. And, that was something
it's bigly. It's huge.
Well, here's I got
to tell you both this. You're both my heroes because you're also in It's Morning Again in America. Yep. And the both of you are such bulwarks for keeping our Constitution intact, for making sure things are run right across this country. And I'll tell you what. The thing Washington, D.C. needs is cowboy logic. If it ever needed it, it needs it today. And I think Donald Trump being president is proof that cowboy logic is needed in that swamp. Yeah. It's a terrible place, D.C. I know that because I lived there for many years and practiced inside of D.C., the law. So it is great to be among real Americans. It's great to be on Cowboy Logic Radio, and that's what I'm talking about tonight. You guys are the best.
Well, thank you, Judge. I got to tell Donna something she doesn't know, and Judge, this has been a little-known secret between you and me since these books came out. I shot the judge an email and enclosed a check for $40 and said, if there's any way you can mention us in your books, it would be cool, and he did.
And then, Don,
I cannot suborn perjury here. That is totally untrue, Donna, so do not believe this guy.
That's true. That's an untruth. That's fake news.
We just went to the gun range this weekend, so as soon as he said, I shot the judge, I thought he was thinking about the gun.
The Taurus judge.
Oh, okay. That's it's my mind. Sorry.
All right, let's get down to business, Judge. Let's get down to business.
I know you two. You both watch the Sunday news programs. I know you do. And last Sunday, I do watch the major network Sunday news programs because I want to know what the enemy's thinking. And I'll tell you, we have a Congress that I dare say is full of interesting people who don't know the difference between a semi-automatic weapon and an automatic weapon. They really do not appreciate the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. If you were to listen to the major networks and these politicians in Washington, they think the Second Amendment was written for hunters. And both of you know, your listening audience knows, the Second Amendment is a bulwark to make sure our liberties stay intact from tyranny.
That's right.
And all of this talk about getting rid of the Second Amendment. If we lose the Second Amendment, we've lost the Constitution, and we've lost our liberties, friends. And that's what it's boiling down to right now. It is a fight for the Republic, and I am personally so glad that Donald Trump is president and we have an actual fighter in Washington, D.C., as opposed to one of these establishment folks who's all talk and no action. So 3 cheers for President Trump. I'm still waiting on that wall to be built, but I am sure we are going to get underway soon enough.
Well, I think with the political correctness, really, and the slowness of our political system, it's frustrating Donald Trump quite a bit because he's used to being the CEO. He says get it done, it gets done. And unfortunately, that's not how the swamp creatures work. But it's
and the other thing is this, Donna, Trump's entire life was spent, as you just mentioned, in the world of business and obviously real estate. Mm-hmm. If he had half of his company, the subordinates, the co-workers, fighting against everything he had to do, he would simply fire them.
You're fired.
Yeah. And clearly he can't do that. So all of a sudden you got a guy that spent his entire business career in the world of business, calling the shots, expecting things to get done quickly, and now he's got half his company fighting against everything he's doing, plus trying to get the board of directors to fire him.
Exactly.
And that's something that he's not used
to. Absolutely true. He can't even get Sessions to do what he likes, what he wants done. It is frustrating. And when you talk about the law and you talk about common sense, sometimes the two of those things do not match up. The law is fraught with problems because people have become laws unto themselves. And I'm talking here about activist judges. I'm talking about people who interpret the law to their own will. And, that's where we are in America today. We've given up the rule of law. It's a selective enforcement. And we know that because Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are still walking free from prison.
Yeah. Exactly, sir. All right, let's jump into, you're a subject matter expert on a lot of areas as far as we're concerned. So I'm going to throw you some topics, and I'm just going to let you take the ball and run with it. Number one, the Mueller investigation throughout the past year. Your thoughts on it. Number two, the Republican memo. Number three, the Democrat response to that. And number four, your thoughts on the dossier and the FISA courts. That's going to take us probably to the end of this segment. So I'm going to let you have it, and you can run with it.
Let's take a look at Robert Mueller. He's an interesting character, the former head of the FBI under Barack Obama. And you know what he is most famous for during that period? He is the guy who was the intermediary for the sale of 20% of America's uranium assets to the Russians. And who benefited from that? Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, Bill Clinton. They received $100 million in support of their foundation for whatever it does because of Robert Mueller's sale. And yet we have him now investigating President Trump for some supposed collusion that involved a meeting with Russians. Absolutely ridiculous. We found no evidence that the president has done anything wrong, yet there is no direction for this investigation. There is no real evidence that points to President Trump, and there's no justification for this investigation to continue. Surely our Justice Department can handle such trivial matters as those indictments that are appearing right now. It's amazing. Let's talk about the FISA court for a second. That Comey, Rosenstein, and others had involvement in. They actually used a political dossier unannounced to a FISA court judge that established probable cause, and that being the reasonable likelihood a crime was committed, to get Americans under investigation by the Obama administration. I can tell you guys, as a former judge, I signed hundreds, perhaps thousands of warrants, and to not disclose the source of why that warrant was approved is a obstruction of justice, is a criminal act if it were to be pursued. Yet we still have Rosenstein working for the Department of Justice. We still have key members of the FBI upper echelon still employed under taxpayer dollars. And we've seen, I don't know how many emails that show they actively attempted to overthrow a duly elected president with some type of, quote, insurance policy. It's amazing. We are in a state of affairs in America where so many things are questionable that we shake our heads and we go, where do you start? Where do you begin? We have an attorney general, Jeff Sessions, who I loved as a senator, actually shying away from any type of prosecution on the Clintons, their foundation, or Barack Obama. And I don't think that's why Trump selected him. We want to clean out that swamp. We want to reestablish the rule of law in America, and that's something we've been without for the last 9 years, 8 of those years being under Barack Obama. So when I look at these things, I shake my head, but the good thing is this. We have Cowboy Logic Radio that's beaming the truth to American citizens and telling them, you know what, we are in a desperate time. And this latest shooting at Parkland School, just another opportunity for the left to further erode our Constitution. And on that part, I talk about the Second Amendment. If we get rid of the Second Amendment, we have lost our Constitution. It's that simple. It was established to make sure American citizens stood against tyranny, against enemies, foreign and domestic. And I don't want to sound like Dyer or a gun nut here, but I want to tell you this. we have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms for a reason, to protect our homes, yes, to hunt, but really to establish our right to defend those principles America was founded on. And I believe President Trump knows that. We hear a lot now about increasing the age of purchasing guns to 21 years old. Fine. If you're going to do that, just make sure you increase the voting age from 18 to 21 as well, because there's no reason for that. And if you're thinking about doing that, you may as well increase it for car driving, because if you won't entrust a young person with a gun, why on earth would you entrust them with him or her with a 2-ton vehicle that can do a lot of damage?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good
you
point.
can't have the First Amendment without the Second. Don had a question for you, Judge Hal MOROZ.
Well, actually, whenever we've got you on, Judge, there is so much more than we can talk about that can fit into a 26-minute segment. And I want to try to keep my questions to a short, limited amount of time so that we can spend time listening to you. So here's one real quick. You've spent your entire career outside of the military in the legal system. Is there a single bit of legislation, in your opinion, that could be passed at a federal or a state level that could prevent any type of tragedy happening when you've got A, an evil individual, or B, a war?
Well, Don, I think all of us know the answer to that. The answer is no. Could the Secret Service have prevented an assassin from taking the life of President Kennedy? If there is evil in our land, people are going to find a device, a tool to use to further their evil intent. It's interesting because I think of France. If you recall, just over a year ago, they had that truck driving. No, they had that attack, if you recall, in that theater, where more people were killed in that one evening than in 3 years in the United States. Now, France has strict gun rules. England has strict gun rules. Yet we here in America, there is this gun proliferation. You know what? I hate to go religion on you here, but 2 Chronicles 7:14, unless we turn from our wicked ways and we acknowledge God, we're going to have a problem here. We've booted God out of our schools. Yep. We've embraced abortion. We are doing so many things that our founders would be rolling over in their graves about. Yet, that's the new culture. Anything goes. We've destroyed so many institutions in America, and now we're left to wonder, what can we do to make sure people do not do evil things? And the answer is, there is nothing. We can harden schools, we can put armed guards in schools, but that will not stop evil people, because they are just going to look for a target that's easier to exploit. So if you have armed guards at one school and you don't have them at the other, guess what? People are going to go to the other school that's not armed. It is the path of least resistance. And whether it's in law or it's in war, we all know people choose the path of least resistance. Evil people are going to do evil things. And that's true from time immemorial. It is the way of things.
I didn't see people saying we need to stop renting Ryder trucks after that jerk in Lower Manhattan ran down a bunch of people, too. And, of course, he yelled Allah Akbar when he jumped out of the truck and started attacking people. And not a half hour, an hour maybe later, when the police gave a press conference, one of the main investigators said he made a statement when he exited the truck.
Here's the bottom line, Donna. Nobody defends themselves with a Ryder truck. Nobody defends themselves with an automobile. People defend themselves with guns. And all
true, Don, when that Ryder truck was moving through people, and in France, I believe it was in Calais, that truck mowing down people, you know what stopped them? Somebody with a weapon. That's what stopped them.
Exactly. And you don't have to look very far. You go to South Africa, you go to Cuba, you find out what happens to countries and the civilians of those countries when the leaders of the country somehow convince them to turn in their weapons.
Venezuela.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, in the amount of time that Barack Obama was in office, South Africa went from a nation that the individuals could protect themselves to a country in which the individuals could not. And there are rapes that take place in South Africa every 23 seconds. The bottom line is this: you've got these people in our government and our elected officials that are lobbying so strongly to take away guns, gun control. The reason for that is because people don't defend themselves with Ryder trucks. They defend themselves with guns. And if you disarm a society, Judge, what happens? Look at the Jews in Germany.
Yep. Give us your guns and get on the train. Actually, I stand corrected. It was a Home Depot truck. We should ban those too.
You know what, Don? And while we're at it, we may as well ban cell phones because the latest statistics I've seen is over 30,000 deaths because of people texting while they're driving.
Yeah.
So let's ban the cell phones. Let's ban the cars. Where does it end? And I hate to say this, but, we are a nation of laws, and we are a nation of liberties. And with that liberty, with that precious liberty, we do run the risk. And that risk is only tempered by the right of people to have something like a weapon to protect themselves and defend their families. I'll tell you what, if we learned anything from this Parkland case, we've learned that even if you have an armed deputy there, he's not necessarily going to go to the gunfire. Huh? And if we're waiting for the government to protect us, to help us, to defend us, well, you know what? We may as well be in New Orleans in 2005 when that flooding came, because people just sat in place and waited for the government to come. And you know what? They didn't come right away, and people were hurt. Mm-hmm. We need to get back to personal responsibility, respect for the law, respect for the rights of people, get back to our Constitution. It's like a football team. When you start going astray, get back to the basics. And my friends, we are in need of the basics once again. The rule of law, the Constitution, respect for one another. People are not that stupid. If we can educate people, we're empowering them. Francis Bacon said knowledge is power. And guys, that's what you do all of the time on Cowboy Logic Radio.
But see, therein lies the problem, because the public education system is failing. Public anything is failing. Public medical, the whole thing with Obamacare is nuts. The government is causing huge increases in Obamacare and huge failing when it comes to educating our kids, because it's more of an indoctrination. But Judge Hal MOROZ, our mutual friend, Charles Ortel, who does yeoman's work investigating the Clinton Foundation. And as a judge, I want to just switch gears a little bit. We only have a couple minutes left. He said the state of Georgia is really at the cutting edge here, because when Bill Clinton came down here and tried to, I guess, raise money for the Clinton Foundation, and if the foundation is found to be so illegal, really, it's never even been audited, that every single count would count as a violation of the law, essentially. Can you just expand on that a little bit, and how Georgia, if this Clinton Foundation ever really does get investigated, is on the cutting edge?
Yes, and Don, I can tell you that the Clinton Foundation is under investigation around the world now. Isn't it funny that since Clinton's been out of power and is no longer a presidential candidate, how all of the contributions have dried up? No one's giving to that foundation anymore. They have cut back and curtailed their activities. But you know what? There's an audit trail. And they have done things in regions and in Georgia that have been done without the authorization to do so. The solicitations, the fundraising. This is true in a number of states. It is highly regulated, and that is soliciting for funds. And the Clintons have been experts at doing that. Where the money goes is another question. I believe it was last 85 cents out of every dollar went to the Clintons or their friends, and approximately 10 cents went to the charities that they purported to be helping. But it is true, there are tens of thousands of counts out there that could pose a criminal and civil liability on the Clintons and their foundation. It's staggering, and these people are still walking free. I believe Clinton was last sighted in the woods up there in Chappaqua, New York. But she is still liable for all of these.
Well, I would submit, Judge, that just if the IRS would legally go after the Clinton Foundation in the collection of taxes and interest and penalties because of people donating to a fraudulent 501c3, if that's what they are, in fact, then we could reduce the national debt considerably by the revenue that we could generate through obtaining those funds.
And we could pay the rest of the national debt down if Bill Gates would just pay a little bit more, because he was complaining.
Well, he's asking to, so I think he should.
So go ahead, Bill. Nobody's stopping.
You know what? I love that thinking. That is the thinking we need. I heard today that Barack Obama is seeking $126 million for his presidential library. $126 million. You know what? He ought to tap the Clinton Foundation and Bill and Hillary for some of that money they got from the Russians for giving them 20% of our uranium reserve.
Well, he needs 126. What would you say? 126 million? Well, he needs that so that he can keep all of his emails and all of his documents. What is it, closed or sealed?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want any of that stuff out, and that's going to take a lot of money. Judge, we're out of time.
Judge Hal MOROZ, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Again, folks, find all of his various books at Amazon and Books A Million. It's Morning Again in America, Breaking Trust with the Constitution, America at Sunset, Armor of the Republic, just to name a few. And again, Judge Hal MOROZ, it's been way too long. We got to have you back. Thanks again for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Don. Love you guys.
You too, sir.
You too, sir. And coming up, the boy wonder from CPAC, Kenny KAKATY, will be joining us. And then John Guandolo, UnderstandingTheThreat.com. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen, and this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Neuen, and I happen to be Kenny KAKATY's favorite conservative talk radio show host. Back to you, Donna.
And possibly favorite bass player, too. If Kenny KAKATY was
I would like to
dating a
jam
bass
with
player.
Kenny KAKATY.
That would be very cool.
That would be smoking.
That would be.
All right, but let's talk about Kenny and let the listeners know why this man is one of our favorite people.
Well, he is a fine young man. At the age of 14 in 8th grade, he is an American patriot. And let me say, he is so wise beyond his years, folks, it's not funny. He's 14 going on 80. It's really, how do you say 14?
He's more mature than I am. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, we met Kenny about, let's see, well, he was 2. When we met Kenny at CPAC, and he played the national anthem on his guitar. He was out talking to people, and we interviewed him at the young age of 2. I think it was his first interview.
It was 2 years ago, though, at CPAC.
I knew it was 2-something.
Yes, but we did get to talk to Kenny at CPAC, and how exciting, Kenny KAKATY, for you to be able to play on your guitar the national anthem back then. You did it again at this year's CPAC. That must have been super exciting. But again, he's an American patriot. He's a musician, and he just loves America. And to be able to say to your father, being at CPAC is like going to Disney World is pretty darn funny, too. Kenny KAKATY, welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be able to play every year.
Hey, so tell me about, like, what was going through your mind, and when you do this, to be able to play the Star Spangled Banner or the national anthem at something like a CPAC, but in general, just to play it in front of that many people at age 14.
Well, every time I play, I get the chills. I always do it on the basis that it's not about me. It's about the country. It's about showing respect and showing patriotism for your country, and paying respect to it.
Tell us about writing your music and how, as an American patriot, that plays into your music and your lyrics and everything else.
So when I wrote my first album, Selfless, we wrote with America in mind and our veterans and patriotism in general, and that's a huge foundation for my writing.
And you've done a lot of fundraising for it as well, for some great causes, too.
Yes. When my band, my brother Joey, my sister Bella, and I work at KD3, and that's a whole other thing. And we wrote a song called Some Days Today, and that was to raise money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And we ended up raising a lot of money to help that foundation.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to kind of interrupt this interview for a second and let you know, first of all, how we first met Kenny and what this young man does mean to us, because he's really special to Donna and I. And we have brought interviews to you in the past, some of which were the first day that we met him. Now, here's kind of the story behind that. In 2016, Donna and I attended CPAC, and in the booth right next to us was the newly to be launched Levin TV, which is now CRTV, but it's Mark Levin's television network. And, we had our booth, and we were set up, and we were broadcasting, and we were doing interviews, and every once in a while, Donna and I would mill around this big convention center and see what was going on. And we walked right next to our booth, to the Levin TV booth, because we're big fans of Mark. And here was this guy named Kenny KAKATY. And it was clear that he was unique right from the start, because now let's see, he's 14 now, so he would have been 12 when we met him. It was like engaging in a conversation with a 35-year-old political wizard. And Donna and I, our jaws were dropping. And we were like, hey, Kenny, you want to come over and do an interview? Well, he'd never done an interview before. And so he comes over and he holds his first interview with Cowboy Logic Radio, January of 2016. And it was a mind blow. And the thing is, Kenny, I kind of set that whole stage for my next question regarding CPAC 2018 that you were just at. How many young people did you see at CPAC, and what was the mindset of all these young patriotic Americans that happened to stay on the right side of the political aisle? I mean, everybody at CPAC, for the most part, unless they're trolls, are conservatives. So what was it like as a kid that's in the 8th grade walking around CPAC, how many other like-minded people that were your age were milling around this massive convention?
Well, first off, you guys are the best. Thanks for that story. And then about the younger people at CPAC, I think it was a very respectful showing. I mean, everyone that I saw that was younger, they were all wearing suits. They were all very respectful, very patriotic, and very enthusiastic. I noticed that too.
So you didn't see anybody that was of your age or maybe a year or two older that was walking around with their pants sagging down below their butt, right?
Didn't see any of that.
I didn't think you would, man. I didn't think you would. All right, so let's get back to CPAC a little bit. Give me some things, because Donna and I were not able to attend this year. And, Kenny, you made us feel pretty bad when you sent us the text message saying,
hey,
where are you guys?
Where are you? I'm like, oh, man, we didn't make it.
We let him down. All right, but give me some high points, some of the things from the 2018, because, as you will admit, there is a lot that's happened between the CPAC 2016 when we saw you and the 2018 that just took place. What are some of the big things that you're going to remember for a lifetime?
Well, I think one of the things that was focused on a lot was the school shooting that happened in Parkland. That was focused on a lot, so guns were a big issue. I got to meet a lot of people that were my age that was different than the years before. More and more younger people are starting to attend these conferences, which was really, really cool. I met actually a lot of kids that were like 14 and 15 years old, so that was really, really cool.
Let me ask you this, and I assume you got to see President Trump speak, which must have been really great. I watched it on TV, and he just went for like an hour and a half, and it was just one positive thing after another. And that's one thing, Kenny KAKATY, that you talk about, and that's positivity. Loving your country is first, and I find that so refreshing in young people today, and I'm encouraged by what you're saying, because I think more and more young people are realizing, for lack of a better way of saying it, maybe they're being duped by their teachers. Maybe they're being duped by the public education system. And loving America is not a bad thing. Make America great again, to coin a phrase.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think positivity, unity, patriotism, that can bring a country together.
So you are seeing that, and I'm very heartened by that. You are seeing that more and more with kids of your generation?
I would say so, yeah. I think Generation Z, I truly do have hope for them. I think patriotism and music, too, that also can unify.
Yeah, what do you think about those guys, Madison Rising?
I'm not sure. Can you fill me in on that?
Oh, I have stumped KAKATY. All right, here's the deal, Kenny. Check them out. And ladies and gentlemen, many of you that may not know about this band, I want you to check them out. The name of the band is Madison Rising, and it's a rock and roll band that does very much what Kenny does, which is patriotic songs. America first, America loving material is what they write. So Kenny, check them out, most definitely. Let's go back to let's go back to the school situation. Now, when we first met you 2 years ago, you told us, and I'm paraphrasing this, of course, that you were somewhat of an oddity in your school, in that you were exceptionally patriotic, and that was something that you didn't. I mean, you kind of stood out among the rest of your class about that, and there were times when you really didn't bring it up at school, and you didn't go there because it was not real accepted. Have things changed in the past 2 years for you in your own cocoon, in your own school?
It hasn't changed. I still keep my opinion most of the time to myself, but I do have faith in my generation. I do think they're going to step up, and that people will formulate their own opinions and take action.
Why do you have that faith? Not that I don't, but I'm curious as to why you feel that they are going to step up.
I feel like our generation is paying more attention to past generations, not millennials, but let's say our grandparents and our parents. It's basically in our DNA of Americans going back to 1700s. Of being completely patriotic. It's in our bloodstream, I think, and I think there is hope.
All right, well, let me ask you this, and Kenny, full disclosure, We haven't gone over any of these questions. Anything I'm firing at you or Donna's firing at you, you're not prepped on them, are you?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Why do you think Kenny KAKATY is so patriotic and so behind his country when most of the kids that we would talk to that are in the 8th grade, quite frankly, are only concerned about what app has been downloaded on their iPhone? Why are you so patriotic?
I'd have to say two things. One would be good parenting, and two would be reading. So my parents, I've been blessed to have great parents that open my eyes to see both sides of the issue and to pay attention in general, to have my own opinion. And then I've always loved reading since I can't even remember how long. And I just reading, and it just, I get everything, all the knowledge, and it really helps to formulate opinion.
Two really good answers, and I can't tell you how happy I am that you said both of those, because you are dead on right.
Absolutely. Family is so important.
Let me say one last thing about that, Donna. We've got a friend by the name of Edward Cage that we have interviewed on our show. He's a black guy from just outside St. Louis. He grew up in the hood. He grew up as a gangbanger. He converted to Islam when he was in his teenage years. And I'm going to tell you what got him out of all of it, Kenny. Every bit of it. Out of the gangs, off the street, and converted back to Christianity. And that was Edward Cage learned how to read at age 20.
Yeah, he had to teach himself how to read because in the poor public education systems in the inner city, they just passed you through. And we are creating, unfortunately, in a lot of these inner cities, a whole generation of illiterates. And so what happens is they can tell people what to think, and people can't read for themselves, and many also do not have that family structure. And again, that is so important. And
you know what he read?
The Bible.
The Bible.
Absolutely. And God bless him. He's had some amazing posts, and he's now starting to go out around the country and actually preach to people about his life's experiences and how important it is and how great really America is to allow him to do that. And that's what you, Kenny KAKATY, are doing as an American patriot as well. I'm sitting here listening to Don ask you a question and listening to your answers, and I'm going, it just blows my mind. He's 14 years old.
Well, and here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. When we first interviewed Kenny, and Kenny, you can attest to this if you want after I make this statement. We didn't treat you any differently than we would a subject matter expert that was a career CIA agent that's now working for Frank Gaffney at the Center for Security Policy. We treated you as a 12-year-old like we would somebody that's 50 years old that's been a career CIA agent.
Because we could ask you those questions.
And you could answer them.
Which is, I mean, when I was your age, I was worrying about what horse my mother was going to buy for me. So as soon as I got out of school, I could go ride and show and do. And that's what most kids do.
When I was your age, I was still pooping in a diaper.
Oh, stop.
Well, that's not true, Kenny.
Let's get back to
Thank you for that, but I still have a ton to learn.
Well, see what I mean? We all do. Life is learning. It's a learning experience. Now, with your brother and your sister, you had the KAKATY 3, and you had your song "Someday Is Today," and you raised some $60,000 for leukemia and the Lymphoma Society. Give us a little background on that. Then I want to get into your solo career, Kenny KAKATY, at age 14. Tell us a little bit about how you raised $60,000 when you were what, maybe 10 or 11 at the time? 12?
Yes. So this was the beginning of last year, and we sorry. So we always supported LLS, which is Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and we wanted to make a difference in a way that most people didn't do. And so they were having the competition for the man or woman of the year. For raising the most money for our chapter. And we decided to write a song and make a video to try to raise money for this. And we got donations from everywhere across the country. Like it truly brought me the chills when I'd see someone in Ohio, like a small family, they donate $500. I'm sorry, $5. And that was really touching.
Yeah, and it does add up. And you had something like 2.2 million views on it?
Yeah, between Facebook and YouTube, if you added them together, around 2.
Wow.
Why did you pick this cause, Kenny?
Well, cancer is something that runs in our family. I mean, it runs in almost every family across the nation and the world. So it's a important issue to us.
I would agree with you. I can't think of anyone I know that hasn't been touched somehow by the devastation of cancer. I lost my mom to ovarian cancer. So what you're doing is it means a great deal to me, my brother.
Absolutely.
And I'm really sorry to hear that.
So let's go on now. You had an album with a female vocalist named Anita Faye, who is a soul singer it's just amazing. Tell us a little bit about that. That was your first solo venture, correct?
Yes. So Selfless was my first solo venture. So I've been really blessed to work with Anita. She is fantastic. She's got a beautiful voice, and she's just a great person. And I've really loved working with her.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now.
So my band KAKATY 3, we just released a new song. That's on our Facebook page, and it's called Everything's All Right. And it's another song about positivity and unity. And then for me and my solo stuff, I'm about to come out with 2 new songs. One is about the devil, which is, in my eyes, it's our pride and our ego, and battling that. And then the other song is called 1,000 Times, and that is about homelessness and like whether it's mental or physical, and the feeling of that.
Okay, Donna's sitting here just looking like a deer in the headlights. Kenny, every time you're on Cowboy Logic Radio, you're an absolute mind blow to Donna Fiducia, to me, and our listeners. And just such a hat tip to the great work you're doing, the great patriotism that you possess, your fine parents, and your awesome siblings. Donna, you've got the websites over there in front. I don't want to make a mistake with them. How do people find Kenny, his work, follow him in Facebook? How do they track him down?
Well, Kenny, it's mostly KennyKakaty.com, right? So it's KennyKakaty, just as it sounds, Kakaty.com, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And then my Facebook...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, and I was going to say my Facebook, my band would be KAKATY 3, so KAKATY and then 3. And for me, if you just type in my name on Facebook, I'll come up.
How do you actually write a song? I mean, usually people write songs because of life's experiences. You're 14 years old. I mean, I'm a huge Beatle fan. And they were writing songs when they were 13 and 14, but they had life's experiences then. I mean, John Lennon was born while bombs were dropping all around him in World War II. And it was a poor family, and they had to really scrounge around. And the same thing with Paul McCartney. I mean, those people had heartache, and a lot of that is what brings out emotion to write a song. But you, Kenny Kakaty, have grown up as a great American patriot, and yet you still have that emotion. You still have that feeling. At the tender age of really 12 and 13 when you started doing this? Is it just something that comes naturally to you?
So when I write a song, I have a bunch of guitar licks that I record randomly, and I take those and I start building a backing track around it. And then when I start writing lyrics, I try to think of something authentic, a feeling, a mood, an emotion that I can truly write about authentically. And then I write about it with a couple friends, and I only keep it to things that are authentic.
And that's the thing, though. Even though you've had a very strong family upbringing, and you feel for people, and I think that is the positivity thing that you talk about. It really is quite remarkable for somebody at such a young age, and I just really am looking forward to the other things that you're going to write in the rest of your life, because it really is just so, to me, very uplifting.
Well, and here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that behind every good child, good young man like Kenny Kakaty, are the parents. And if it wasn't for the parents, there's a good chance Kenny Kakaty could have turned out a little differently. Now, I'm going to go we only got about 2 minutes, Kenny, so I want to talk about the woman in your life Now, as a 14-year-old and with parents that I know, at least I know your father, you know, he's not letting you run amok as some unruly playboy. So tell me about the one woman in your life. What's her name?
Her name's Lisa.
Lisa. And she's curvy, right? I think we'll admit that she's got nice curves, right, Kenny?
I'd say so. My dad makes that joke all the time.
Oh,
well,
okay.
See, great minds think alike.
All right, so,
tell us a little bit about Lisa and her curves, and maybe even a little bit about her fingerboard.
So I met Lisa when I was 8 years old, and I had been playing guitar for about 6 months. And the moment I saw her, I knew she was the one. And we ended up buying her right on the spot. And I've been with her ever since. I've never had, so after her, I never had a more favorite guitar. She was always the favorite. There is an acoustic that I am friends with named Angela. Lisa and I have an agreement about this. So Angela's off limits for me, but I still get to use her.
But the bottom line is, I think it's safe to say that you're a one-guitar guy. You don't play around. You don't two-time.
Right. So Lisa doesn't fret when you
that was funny. That was funny, Donna.
The acoustic guitar.
Good one.
Yeah, but I did hear she's quite an electric gal. All right, now
I love fun.
All right, let me because we've only got about 20 seconds here. Is this the Godin?
Yes.
Okay. Well, from another guitar player, good choice in fine instruments. Donna, we got to go to break. Kenny, as always, buddy, it is such an honor to be your friend, and it's an honor to be able to have you from time to time on Cowboy Logic Radio. We absolutely admire you as a young man, as an American patriot, and a musician.
And we are going to play your rendition of the national anthem at CPAC 2018 coming up as well. Kenny KAKATY, thank you so much for joining us here at Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you guys so much for having me, Mr. Neuen and Mrs. Fiducia.
You got it, buddy. That's Don and Donna to you, buddy.
Yes, please.
All right, who we got coming up next, Donna? We got to go quick here.
Okay, John, we'll be talking to John Guandolo, talking about radical Islam, understandingthethreat.com. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, and their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you this 24/7 stream of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. We are a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. If you're able, please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. Your donation will go a long way in helping us continue to share the American voice. Thank you.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey, everybody, they're back on again.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, when their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. And I was hesitating because I expected you to...
I behave.
You're behaving.
When we have certain subject matter, gold-plated subject matter guests, I behave.
Oh, boy. Okay. I'll have to remember that in the future. Anyhow, yes, we do have a gold-plated guest for sure. His name is John Guandolo. John is a 1989 graduate of the Naval Academy who took a commission as an officer in the United States Marine Corps. And in 1996, he joined the FBI. After starting his FBI career in narcotics, he began an assignment to Counterterrorism Division of the FBI's Washington Field Office, developing an expertise on the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic doctrine, the global Islamic movement, and terrorist organizations including Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and others. And in 2006, he was designated a subject matter expert by the FBI, where he created and implemented the FBI's first counterterrorism training program focused on the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic doctrine. And he is the founder of UnderstandingTheThreat.com. Look it up, folks. UnderstandingTheThreat.com, an organization dedicated to providing strategic and operational threat-focused consultation, education, and training for federal, state, and local leadership and agencies, and designing strategic ideas for communities of all levels in order to defeat the jihadi threat. And John Guandolo, welcome.
And I'm Don NEUEN, ladies and
is.
gentlemen, and I would like to be the first to welcome John Guandolo to the show. Something no one knows about John and I is that during the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention, most recently in late January, in lovely Myrtle Beach, John and I were featured synchronized swimmers during one of the breaks at the resort heated pool. Back to you, Donna.
No, you weren't. But John did go in the ocean.
That was complete fake news.
In January.
That was all
scares
untrue.
The living daylights out.
Yeah, but John did swim in the ocean when it was a mere about, 40 degrees? John, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio, buddy. We love the work you're doing, and we also equally as much enjoy spending quality time with you when we're not synchronized swimming together.
In your Speedos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're crazy, but I love it. And I want to make sure your audience understands. Look, I'm a recon Marine. We go swimming in the ocean in January. That's just the way it is.
Well, you'll swim in a bathtub if that's all you got.
That's all I got.
Not me. Not me. If it's not 100 degrees out and the water's not 85.
All right, let's cut right to the chase because, ladies and gentlemen, as we mentioned, John Guandolo is what we consider to be gold-plated subject matter expert. Now, what does that mean? That means anything that comes out of this man's mouth is something that you instantly can have credibility in. He's one of the very few people you do not need to vet the information that he discusses. You don't need to vet and do any research, unless you want to, of course, on the work that he does. But you can post, retweet, reference this with full credibility. That's how good he is. So, John, let's get right to it. Discuss with us and our listeners, if you don't mind, the basis for not only your company, but the phrase understanding the threat.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think to answer that question, I want to quote one of our team members, Billy Vaughn, who's a Gold Star father, and he's our director of outreach for understanding the threat. And, Billy said he came to know the threat by his son's involvement as a SEAL Team 6 member and being killed in combat, seeing how our leadership failed to understand the threat. And as he and his wife, Karen, came to learn about it, and he looked around, he found people, Billy did, who were discussing the threat, but he said, understanding the threat, UTT, is the only organization in America actually defining it, giving citizens and law enforcement tools to map out the threat, giving citizens tools and strategies to deal with it, things to do at the local level, giving police investigative strategies to aggressively, legally pursue these organizations and individuals. And we're the only ones in the country giving state leaders a strategy to dismantle the networks. And that's what separates us from everyone else. Other people are educating. We are not only educating and consulting and training, but we're providing the how do you actually crush the enemy and win this war here in the United States. That's what we're about.
And most specifically, that enemy and the threat in one sentence is the movement of Islam.
It's the Islamic movement, which is being supported and partnered with, in a way, if I can use that word. The Islamic movement wouldn't use the word partnered. They would probably say they're cooperating with the Marxist movement and how those two work together.
Mm-hmm. Both the red and the green, right?
That's right. Red-green axis. It's a good analogy.
Okay. All right. Now, you have just spent a number of days in San Diego, and I'd like for you, if you don't mind, to share with the guests some of the stuff that went on during your speaking engagements, because you were with various organizations out there, from Tea Party to military bases to law enforcement and the whole nine yards. The beauty of understanding the threat, ladies and gentlemen, is it is not tunnel visioned into one segment of the population. John Skills and his team members are able to not only go into a military base, which they're very comfortable speaking at and being on, but also law enforcement, which they also are very comfortable, and the general public. They could go into a church service and have this discussion with 200 or 300 people in a Sunday evening church service. But back to you on that, John. Talk about some of the events that you've been holding, but also some of the disruptions and chaos that's been trying to be created at these.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, it helps. I think you nailed it on the head. We can go into any venue and be comfortable, whether it's a civic organization, a church, military, police, you name it, and we do them all because this problem exists at all layers of our society. The Islamic movement has insinuated itself into all layers of society, and they've made their objectives very clear. So my background, obviously, you said, I'm a military officer, a combat veteran, former FBI agent. I was recruited in 2008 out of the FBI to work with the Department of Defense, and ended up speaking to committee chairs of the Homeland Security Committee in Congress, Intelligence Committee chair, former FBI, CIA, DIA directors, military leaders, and my experience was I never briefed any of those people who understood the threat, not once. Now you look at my vice president, Chris Gobbets, who went undercover inside the group Hamas, doing business in the United States as the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, and he came to understand the threat by posing as a Muslim and being taught by imams, Islamic scholars, and working inside CARE and seeing how they do day-to-day business, and that they are a hostile, terrorist, or jihadi organization. And so that's his experience in a nutshell. We have Stephanie Amais, our lead investigator, who's a former police officer who was a terrorism liaison officer, had gone through tons of training, and then saw our 3-day program and realized she didn't understand anything about the threat. And that is the 100% experience we get when we teach and train law enforcement, whether it's FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force personnel or others, and they hear the information and they realize they had no idea how bad the threat was. And then finally, I just introduced a moment ago Billy Vaughn, a Gold Star parent of SEAL Team 6 member Aaron Vaughn, who was killed in Afghanistan, and he was killed because our leaders have failed to identify the threat and address it in a way that it should be addressed.
They most certainly did.
Pandering.
Yeah, they most certainly did.
You know, the way that the military leadership is pandering to our enemy is disgusting. So all of us come to this an understanding of the threat of the Islamic movement in different ways. But the key is we all understand it, we've all experienced it, now we're sharing it with others. In San Diego, I mean, we spoke to a huge church with over 200 people. I spoke Wednesday at the Naval Academy Alumni Association luncheon, and prior to the event, Hamas, doing business as CARE, actually contacted the local chapter and the president of the National Naval Academy Alumni Association. Now, I'm a graduate, and I had classmates in the audience. We had retired admirals. We had about 90 people in the room, and they tried to get it shut down because they said it was hateful and all kinds of nasty stuff, because they lie, because that's what they do. And we had the imam of the terrorist mosque, the Islamic Center of San Diego, where 9/11 hijackers were directly supported, by the way, per the 9/11 report. And the property is owned for the Islamic Center of San Diego by the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, as a matter of fact. And their imam was in the room. And at the end of the presentation, after the crowd had seen the evidence, he stood up and just tried to make a public statement that it was, his name's Taha Husseini, and he tried to stand up and say, this was just bigoted and all this stuff. And of course, I just said, if you got a question, ask it. Otherwise, this isn't your speech, and ended up, he just threw, called me names, and then he was dragged out by security. And the leader of Hamas in San Diego, Hanif Mohebi, who runs the care office here, tried to actually get in the room. And I just said, you're not, we told him, you're not getting in because you're a Hamas leader. So go pound sand. And it's time we start treating these people like they should be treated and stop treating them like they're a reasonable partner to have a discussion with. They're terrorists, and we need to treat them like terrorists and stop pussyfooting around. It's disgusting. The good news is the Naval Academy Alumni Association stood firm, and that was very interesting. We also had a retired Navy chief, hospital corpsman, Sharia adherent Muslim, stand up, who previously, because we saw it on the news later, was out front because they had about a dozen people protesting the event, which was at a public venue. And this guy, a retired Navy corpsman, hospitalman, chief, stood up and said, essentially, you're just spewing rhetoric. And of course, people in the room, 90 people, Marine and naval officers, who just watched 50 minutes of evidence, they actually laughed because they realized how ridiculous he was. But that's what you get from the leadership of the Islamic movement. They're not about having a discussion. They're about shutting the discussion down because they know when the facts are laid on the table, it demonstrates that they're terrorists. And all of the prominent Islamic organizations, all are part of the Muslim Brotherhood's network that is published their objective as being to overthrow the U.S. government and impose establish an Islamic state under Sharia. That's their stuff. That's not me making that up. That's evidence in the largest terrorism trials in American history. And so when presented with this, reasonable and rational people can easily see what the problem is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got John Guandolo on here. He is with Understanding the Threat, found at understandingthethreat.com. John, I want to interject two things here, get a brief response from you, then Donna's got some questions that she wants to fire at you. But there's a couple of things that I think are real important for our listeners to understand. Number one, what you just said is happening all across the country, very much so on our college campuses, is exactly what Khalid Sheikh Mohammed told Dr. James Mitchell was the objective of Al-Qaeda and the Islamic movement in creating the caliphate worldwide. That's exactly what Khalid Sheikh Mohammed said. The other thing that I wanted to address were these members of your team, three of which Donna and I are familiar with. You, of course. Billy Vaughn, who's the father of Aaron Vaughn. He and Karen Vaughn are the parents of Aaron Vaughn, who was a member of Navy SEAL Team 6, who perished during Extortion 17, which is an absolute cover-up by the United States government back in the days of our dear friend Hillary Clinton. In addition, Chris Gabatz, who's Dave's son, I would say, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I don't think you will, but I want a full disclosure. I want to give you that opportunity. Dave and Chris are the authorities on infiltrating and going undercover into mosques posing as Islamists, and they actually take a what would be considered maybe a fake commitment to Islam, but they get deep in the weeds, they infiltrate, and then they report back, right?
That's right. And what I just want to point something out that really brings it all together. When I was in the FBI investigating cases, what I came to understand is what the Muslim Brotherhood's doctrine is, and what I found was their doctrine is what Islamic law is. And Islamic law comes from the Quran and the example of Islam's prophet Muhammad. When Chris went undercover and posed as a converted Muslim and went around the country for a year and a half going in and out of mosques, they were teaching the same thing in 100% of the mosques he went in, which that is, it is mandatory for Muslims to obey Sharia, and 100% of Sharia mandates warfare against non-Muslims. Now, whether individual Muslims adhere to that and obey that, that's a different story. But the point is, that is what Islam is. James Maxwell goes in and is interrogating 15 or 16 of the top Al-Qaeda guys in the world for the U.S. government, and he gets schooled by the mastermind, if you will, the operational planner for 9/11, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who tells him, read Reliance of the Traveler. It's 14th century Islamic law, and then he explains it to him. And so he comes to understand exactly what that is. So all of us come to this from different places. Dave Gobbets, when he was Air Force OSI, retires, gets called back, and begins deploying overseas after 9/11, goes in and talks to imams, goes into mosques, read their stuff, and he comes to the same conclusion, which is the same thing that Muslims teach in elementary and junior high school textbooks, which we use when we teach others about Islam. We use the source material that they use in U.S. schools and mosques. That's how we teach law enforcement about Islam.
But
and
that
so
got changed under Obama, didn't it? Obama's the one who changed that. Why can't we change it back?
No. Well, you're talking about inside the government. I'm talking about what understanding the threat does. Mm-hmm. We still teach what we've always taught, which is what Muslims teach Muslims when you're not around. And when you do that, you will come to the realization that when ISIS and Al-Qaeda speak about the requirements of Islamic law, they have never, not once, been wrong. And that, as I'll quote a four-star general when I was able to convince him by showing him the facts about what Islamic law teaches, that completely changes the nature of how we fight this war. Once you realize that that's true, that the problem isn't just a handful of nuts or a handful of, quote, radicals. The doctrine of Islam is what ISIS and Al-Qaeda say it is. And it doesn't mean that everyone who self-identifies as Muslim wants to follow it, but it also means that a Muslim who doesn't follow Sharia does not constitute a different version of Islam. They're simply not following the required doctrine.
Kind of like Catholics that are sort of Reformed Catholics that just don't go to church, but the difference being is the Muslims are much more violent, obviously, and their doctrine of Sharia law is not compatible with the U.S. Constitution. So, but here in the United States, we're so, I guess, more forgiving, for lack of a better way of saying it. So then you have this useful idiot, as I call him, this guy you just mentioned, who sits through 50 minutes of getting educated and then stands up and says, no, that's not true. I mean, that's the problem that we're facing. And it's trickled down through the government. I mean, you really have McMaster, this guy that's so close to Donald Trump. He's not really looking at the threat of Sharia law at all either.
No, as a matter of fact, I will tell you my experience having briefed dozens and dozens and dozens of members of Congress and chairmen of these committees and former FBI, CIA, including former National Security Advisor to the President, that of all these people that I briefed and then individuals who are either active or retired generals that I've come across, when they challenge this information, my first question is always the same. What Islamic law have you read? And the answer is one of two answers. I've never read any, but I know it can't say what you say it says. No religion would condone that. That's the level of unprofessionalism and ignorance we have among our leaders. Or the other one is, I don't need to read it. I have an Islamic advisor telling me everything I need to know.
Yeah, that's
and both of those
the enemy within right there. I mean, come on.
That's it. That is it right there.
Let me just
And
reintroduce
it
you
is
here.
absolutely unprofessional.
Exactly. We're talking with John Guandolo, who is UnderstandingTheThreat.com, an organization dedicated to providing strategic and operational threat-focused consultation and education for a lot of our federal, state, and local agencies. Also, he's the co-author of Sharia, The Threat to America, the first comprehensive book on the enemy threat doctrine, and the author of Raising a Jihadi Generation, Understanding the Muslim Brotherhood Movement in America. And John, you talked earlier about the Islamic movement in cahoots with Marxism, this red-green axis, and just talking about raising a jihadi generation, this really scares me because that red-green axis is very deep in our education system, and you've got these millennials coming up right now that think, have these coexist bumper stickers on the back of their Subarus, and it just drives me nuts.
Well, interesting you bring that up because the coexist bumper stickers are produced by Answer, International Answer, which is Act Now, Stop War, End Racism. It's a radical Marxist group funded by George Soros. And actually, 3 days after 9/11, Answer stood up a, quote, steering committee that was made up of about 14 international hardcore Marxists, like violent revolutionary groups, and the Muslim Brotherhood's National Muslim Student Association, coordinating to do the things that they do. So that's the first thing. Here in San Diego, you have a great example of that red-green axis. You have the school board in San Diego literally working with Hamas, doing business as CARE, to educate children about Islamophobia. Now, there are all kinds of things wrong with this, besides the fact that school board thinks it's okay to bring Hamas into the school district. That's the first thing, which should be a game ender right there. That should be pretty much the end of it. And then you've got this Islamophobia campaign, which is actually, if you read the Muslim Brotherhood's work and what they're doing, they're using this, quote, Islamophobia campaign as a way to impose their will on us. In other words, for them, it's the imposition of the Islamic law of slander, which is, in Islamic law, if you say anything about Islam, or another or a Muslim that they would dislike, and that's the verbiage in the law, dislike, then that's slander, and it's a capital crime, which is why people get killed for drawing pictures of their prophet Muhammad.
Exactly.
And so they're teaching this inside U.S. schools, and it's being litigated because they're being sued by families in San Diego County who are saying, no frickin' way, this is outrageous. And there was litigation, and the school board agreed not to work with CARE anymore. There was a ruling on it, and now there's evidence that the day that ruling came out, the school board leadership met with the leaders of Hamas doing business as CARE in their offices. So
it's amazing.
Think people in the San Diego, they need to go to jail for this.
All right, John, we got about 2 minutes. I want to hit you with one final question and then give you about a minute to respond to it, and then unfortunately we're out of time for the rest of the evening.
Okay.
John, when you entered the military, you took an oath. That oath didn't expire. The flag officers and the big generals that are running the Department of Defense and at the Pentagon took that same oath. And if I'm not mistaken, so did elected officials. How is it that an oath that says that you will protect the United States from enemies, foreign and domestic, how is it that elected officials and these brass in the military at the DOD and the Pentagon are allowing us to purge military manuals, law enforcement manuals of anything that has to do with identifying the threat? You got about 45 seconds to answer that one.
Well, I think because they don't understand their oath and they fail to understand the enemy. Our warfighting doctrine says when you analyze an enemy, you begin with who they say they are, why they're fighting. 100% of this enemy says they're Muslims waging jihad in the cause of Allah to establish Islamic State under Sharia. After 9/11, that should have been our starting point. Our military generals have failed. Our elected officials at the national leadership has failed. You now have thousands of Muslim Brotherhood organizations in the United States. It is once again up to the citizens, local police, and local leaders to deal with this issue county by county, state by state. That said, we have leaders in this country who have committed treason, and I think they need to be charged and executed for it so that it sets an example. If you're going to aid and abet the enemy and commit treason against your government, then this is the price you pay. It's why it's a law on the books. It's why it's been there, to be an example for how you're accountable to the law and to the American people.
It seems to me they do not understand the threat. And that is why you are there and doing yeoman's work, John Guandolo, and we thank you so much. Again, folks, find him at understandingthethreat.com. Please check out his books, Sharia, The Threat to America, and Raising a Jihadi Generation, Understanding the Muslim Brotherhood Movement in America. And one of these days, hopefully, Donald Trump will outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood if we can get the right people into Donald Trump's head on this threat. And really, in general, how our upper echelons of government and military do not understand the threat. John Guandolo, understandingthethreat.com. Thank you so much again for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you for having me. God bless y'all.
You too. And that ends yet another Cowboy Logic Radio show for another week, folks. Find us at talkamericaradio.us, cowboylogic.us, and we will see you next Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Until then, God bless America.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.